It's with a heavy heart I do this video. The falling away is going to happen and occur because the church just is not strong enough to withstand and endure what's going to happen. It's sad. I lived my entire life with the purpose and belief I was going to strengthen this church and equip them and prepare them. I do believe that early on my ministry was disqualified by Jesus Christ because he simply didn't want to deal with my ministry. The church was a problem. The church was exceedingly sinful, and that plays into it a little bit. The problem is Jesus Christ was against me early on because of fault I had with someone named Todd Montanaro, and Jesus Christ really viewed my ministry from that point forward like something he disdained. So he never really backed me or helped me or exalted me. He basically decided no exaltation ever for Scott Christopher Schumann. And I'm pretty sure I lost my ministry at that time. When he decided to never exalt me, I'm pretty sure at that point I lost my ministry. I didn't lose my ability to do my ministry, to actually interpret the Bible and to receive revelation and to publish it for free so the church can be edified. That didn't get hampered at all. So the church got its food, it got its nutrients. But even though I was able to perform the ministry in that regard, since Jesus Christ determined there would never be any exaltation, there was a disdain on my ministry. Unfortunately, the church was so sinful, this disdain meant they never took me seriously as a minister, and they kind of used me and abused me, but that didn't raise them up at all. They got some revelation and some answers, but they were not strengthened as a church. They almost became more bratty. They almost became more self-righteous and more spoiled. And you and I both know that that can hurt people more than it helps them. So Jesus Christ's decision early on to never back my ministry with exaltation was something that not only affected the church and me, but the work couldn't get done. And because the work couldn't get done, the church could not be strengthened. Their hands couldn't be strengthened. The purpose couldn't. See, God was never, ever, ever going to honor me like that. God was never going to honor me like Elijah or like anybody who has exaltation. He was never going to do it. And you might say, well, Scott, it doesn't seem wise, or, I mean, it seems dumb that God would call you from the womb and never exalt you, because then the work really can't get done. Let me tell you something. I agree. I've never understood it. I've never understood why God didn't give me exaltation between 2007 and 2011, 12 and 13 and 14. I'll never understand it. It doesn't make sense to me. The only thing that makes sense to me is God is a vindictive God according to the Old Testament. He gets pissed off. He got pissed off with Moses. He was going to kill everybody. We all know that God can get really pissed off. I just think that when I wronged Todd in 1995 and 1996, that God got so pissed off, it didn't matter anymore. He just was never going to exalt my ministry. The problem is the church can't be strong. This church needed a minister between 1995 and 2017 that could do the job, that could do the work, and could strengthen them. I was born for that purpose. I was born to do that work. And I believe I could have done it. The problem is Jesus Christ was so pissed off, he determined no exaltation. So do the work, give it away for free online, but that's it. The problem is the church didn't get built up and edified in that regard. Now, are there some questions? Is it possible Jesus didn't have the foresight to see this? It's possible. It's possible Jesus Christ was so proud in his arrogance and in his judgment that he thought the revelation would be enough. The revelation was never going to be enough. This church needed to be chastened, and they needed someone really. Even Paul in his letters were hard on the church. God didn't even allow a third of that. And I had to be like 3 to 5 times harder than Paul was in his letters just to make a dent in this church. So I had to be exalted between 2000 and 2017 on some level in order to do the work in the church. But like I already explained to you, since Jesus Christ determined to never exalt me and to really never give me this ministry, do the revelation work and give it away for free. But that's not the same as performing the ministry where you're exalted and God's backing you and the whole church knows they better take this seriously. There's a reason in the Old Testament God would say, don't fear this prophet. Because the fear of a prophet opens you up for the work to get done. So God's like, if there's a false prophet who's lying, don't fear that prophet. Okay, so that's just a perspective. God was never going to exalt my ministry to the intent that you would fear him, not me. You would fear him to the degree you did the work. And me publishing the Revelation online for free and handing it out, you scorned and mocked me over it. So that wasn't going to align you ever. You were just going to be spoiled and receive my words perfectly and just not necessarily change your walk or make you mature. But yeah, you would now have that knowledge, and you would disdain me and you would just laugh. The point being, in order for a certain work to get done so you would not fall away, I had to be in the churches being exalted with God backing me so that you feared him and you feared the process. That never occurred. It never even came close. I think I lost that at Todd Montanaro. I think God was done there. I don't think he was ever going to exalt my ministry. But I tried all the way till 2015 through 17. I tried with all my heart. And I know for a fact I tried. And that matters a lot to me, having a clean conscience there. So I tried to help this church and to be that voice that would align you with God so that you could endure the great tribulation, so that you wouldn't fall away and so that you can have that confidence. Now here's an argument. Was the church so sinful and spoiled and horrible in general that Jesus said, screw it, I just won't use Scott? I don't believe that's the case. I actually believe that the church was sinful, spoiled, and useless. Yeah, they were. But I also believe that me and the churches could have fixed it. I actually believe I could have done the job. So I'm not going to give Jesus Christ an out there. So this looks pretty bad. It almost looks like the great falling away could have been stopped. The great falling away could have been disannulled. The great falling away could have been stopped. And now it's not going to be stopped. It's been prophesied in the Bible. It's going to occur. Now, I'm seeing this in real time. I'm born to serve the Lord since 1973 on. I knew as a child I was special. I always knew I had to do a work of faith. I just didn't know it would be towards the church and ministry. But once I was between the ages, well, let me just specifically say, once I was 23 years old, I knew. I absolutely knew that it was God's will. I was a minister toward the church. So it's just sad. It's really, 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 really sad that the falling away is going to occur. And based on my judgment, it could have been stopped. 70% of the church could have been saved. At least 35%. They could have endured. They could have made it, man. And I'm telling you, they could have made it. I truly believe that with all my heart. And I believe I'm going to be vindicated there. 70 to 35% of the church could have endured and not fallen away. And you might say, so Scott, you're basically saying God lost 70% to 35% of his church because he was mad over Todd Montanaro? Yes. I actually believe that with all my heart. And people are going to laugh and scorn me and jeer me, but it's the truth. God was so pissed off after Todd Montanaro that he had no desire to exalt me. He had no desire to use my ministry to free his people and to equip and give his people the opportunity to really start serving him in spirit and in truth. And you might say, well, okay, I'm kind of seeing it. He simply didn't want to exalt me. And if God doesn't want to exalt someone, that's a huge, huge factor for him. God did not want to exalt me like Elijah. And that's basically what would have eventually probably occurred. I wasn't going to be exalted immediately like Elijah, but I was going to be exalted like one of the great men of faith. And God was against it. I think God truly believed that he could still save these souls. I think God truly believed, hey, the revelation will be enough. My church will fear me. I'll do the work. It'll still get done. What Jesus Christ did not have the foresight to see is his church is just too spoiled, sinful, and set in their ways. Set in their ways. Just use that one. Set in their ways. The church was too set in their ways. The revelation wasn't enough. They were going to need a minister over them, hampering them consistently. Okay, almost like a spoiled, certain type of child you got to really watch and keep your eye on. That's what the church needed. And because God refused to exalt my ministry, absolutely refused it, he lost that part. He lost that father or that minister over the church that was going to hold them accountable and watch them and make sure that they didn't make too many mistakes. the revelation was never going to be enough because they weren't going to hold themselves to an account there. They just refused to do it. Okay, because they're spoiled and they're set in their ways, and they just do their own thing. So they needed someone like me over them, just like a certain type of child needs a father over them to really set them straight. But the right way, not beating them, but calling them on their nonsense, eyeballing them, and making sure they know what the truth is and what's proper and what's not. Okay, so I think Jesus Christ missed this one. One more factor. I was always for chastening this church. I was always for chastening this church, and my videos prove that. Jesus Christ would not chasten his church. He refused to do it through me, and as my opinion, he refused to do it in general. If you know the scriptures, that's a huge problem. That's a sub-factor as to why the falling away is going to occur. If you don't chasten people, they're not sons. They're not going to abide. And because Jesus Christ refused to chasten his church on the level they needed it, he maybe thought the revelation would be enough and that they would do the work. But because they played every game in the book, it didn't work out that way. They took the revelation and just scorned. So the church needed someone over them. And because they did not have that, the revelation it didn't equip them. They didn't do the work, and the falling away is basically here. It's going to happen, and they're not strong enough to abide through it. And so the falling away is a very clear factor here. And I'm telling you right now, the chastening would have been a part of my ministry that held them to account, and so they would be chastened, and at that point their ability to endure would be stronger, because they would be chastened. The Bible makes it clear, if you're not chastened, it's going to be hard to stay in the faith. Okay? So my ministry was not only going to equip them with prophecy, to edify them, exhort them, and comfort them, it was going to chasten them some. Okay? Jesus Christ missed all that. He didn't have the foresight, he didn't have the heart, he didn't have whatever. He missed all that. I mean, he missed it all. And now the church has the revelation, but nothing else. No chastening, no edification, exhortation, or comfort. They don't have any of that. And now the tribulation is right in front of us. And they have weak hands, and they never got chastened, and they never got tested, and they never got proved in the churches. They never got proved with tests, and they never got proved with words. Okay? So that's my answer as to why Jesus Christ would not use me. I think Jesus Christ, in his pride, thought the work would pretty much still get done. The church would do the right thing. I think Jesus Christ was betting the church would still do the right thing. Well, joke's on him. The church did the polar opposite. They not only didn't do the right thing, they didn't do the right thing times 1,000. They really didn't. And here's where I get to have some consolation. I warned them. I told them. I said, this church is not going to do the right thing. You have to use me, and you have to chasten them. And I told him this from the beginning, since 2011 on. I told them. He should have listened to boots on the ground. I told him. I said, it's not going to work. So Jesus Christ's pride and his inflated ego and his inflated self-confidence really cost him and his church big time, because I ended up being correct. This is long before CERN. I ended up being proven correct. I absolutely told Jesus Christ what was needed to get the job done. Okay? And Jesus Christ just disdained me. So we know a few things. Number one, the falling away is going to occur, and that is not a good thing. Okay? We can agree on that. The question becomes, what happened over the last 50 years to create the falling away? I'm telling you right now, I did my job. I should have been in the churches long before 2015. Okay? This thing, Jesus Christ made up his mind long before 2015. Okay? There was no help for me. So, the falling away is here. It's going to be abysmal. And according to my judgment, Jesus Christ was not accurate with knowledge and facts that were needed in order to secure his church and to make them stronger. He disdained me. He disdained my ministry, so he didn't use it. But if you don't use a ministry like mine, the ministry can't do its job. And there was no other ministry on earth to prepare the church for the end times and the falling away. There was nobody else. Nobody else was willing to do that work, and no one else could be used in that regard. So, de facto, Jesus Christ, by not using me, created this scenario. And I was willing to be used long before I fell on Sherdog. I was willing to be used in 2010, 2011, even 2000, 2003, I was willing to be used. So there's really no excuse from my end. So what becomes the answer. Jesus Christ disdained me and my ministry so much because of Todd Montanaro from 1995 and 6 on, that he just didn't care about my ministry. And he was overinflated in his ego. He still thought the work would get done. He still thought the church would do the right thing, but he was proven wrong.